Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. It's been more than 2 months, almost 2.5 months that I have this device. I have put more than 250 hours on this. And today we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about the aspects and the experience of using the device. I'm gonna make some small comparisons for context reasons when it comes to docked and handheld gameplay and the experience in general, comparing it to something like the PS5 and comparing it to something like the Steam Deck when it comes to handhelds. And with that being said, I will also have everything chaptered so you can choose and browse whatever. This is gonna be, again, like most of my recent videos, it's going to be mostly about talking video. You don't have to watch this, but I will put something on the back of the thing so you will be at least watching something if you wanna watch and have some visual stimulation. So I'm gonna start and let's get right into it. So first, we're gonna talk about the battery life. Battery life has been for me very normal. I have been used to the Steam Deck that having this kind of battery life to 2.5 hours, and that is mostly for games that are using the full power of the Steam Deck. And it is the same with this when you're using games that are using the full power of the Switch 2. Usually you get around 2 hours to 2.5 depending on the charge that you have. And for me, I have put the 90% limit on charging because I mostly, if I have a plug near me and I'm not using it for something else, I'm gonna have it plugged in because I do that as well for the Steam Deck. I'm so used to be doing that because if I want to take the device after somewhere else, like to the couch and stuff, I want to have full battery charge. I don't want to think about it later. Oh, I need to charge, I need to get my external battery and stuff like this. So for me, I always take precautions rather than react to a situation like that. So just to have my full perspective around this. So when you're talking about the battery life, to me it doesn't seem that bad. And 2.5 hours, usually you're gonna get it with 50% brightness, which is exclusively where I play, and when you have it 100%. Usually I'm getting 2 hours when I have it like 80% and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's talk about charging as well. Charging is a little bit weird on this device. I will suggest, if you don't already have that, to get a U-Green charger that is gonna have more than enough wattages for the Switch 2. Maybe get 100 watts so you can use other devices at the same time as well. That can be for external battery, that can be for just a charger, whatever you want to call it. It is definitely good to have that because the Switch 2, when you put it on the dock, it doesn't charge on the same rate that it does when you have it unplugged from the dock and you just put the cable on it. It charges way faster that way, and it is because when you put it on the dock, it changes the TDP profile and it doesn't charge fast even when you put it on, sleep mode. If you have it on sleep mode and you put it on the dock, it still doesn't even charge as close as fast, at least in my experience, compared to when you have it on, something like a U-Green charger or even the normal charger. If you just take the cable from inside the dock and you just put it directly on the Switch, it's still gonna charge faster than what in my experience I had with other devices. So if you have like something like an RGLI charger or a Steam Deck charger, most likely is going to be working on that. Now, for me, I have a charger that I use for everything for the Steam Deck, but all of them are 100 watts. I am not sure if this device is 65 watts, so you may need to check a little bit more around that, specifically for people that review chargers for the Nintendo Switch 2, just for you to be sure. But for me, with 100 watt chargers, I had no issue, and unless you really have to, that's only when you're gonna put it on the dock. And speaking of the dock, let's talk about the docked experience. But before I do, I have to mention that my playtime on the Switch 2 has been mostly handheld, because I enjoy handheld the most, is why I like devices like the Steam Deck and the Switch 2 now. Because I really do enjoy playing on the go, on the bed, and stuff like that. So I play very limited on the docked, which is around 30%, usually Mario Kart and Donkey Kong Bonanza, Zelda, because like these games, especially when you were used to play them on way lower frame rates and resolution, and you see them now on the Nintendo Switch 2, it is stunning how good it looks now with the Nintendo Switch 2 on the dock. So when I want to play those visually, stunning games, I'm going to put them on the dock sometimes when I feel like it. So the docked experience so far has been great. From the start, you have all the resolutions, unlike the PS5 that didn't have 1440p. This device has everything, but the thing that is missing, even though they mentioned it at the start that it was there, it doesn't have VRR, which is variable refresh rate. So like you're feeling if there is any kind of changes in the frame rate, you will not really immediately feel it. And VRR, it seems to be tricky because a lot of consoles outside of Xbox, which is running some kind of custom Windows operating system, the other consoles seem to have struggled quite a bit with VRR. PS5, after all these years, finally is able to have like low frame rate compensation VRR, which is something that hopefully will happen also for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I hope they figure it out because it seems to be working on the go. So it is just a matter of time when they figure it out as well for the displays, monitors, TVs, and all of that. And just also something to mention, because it is something that a lot of people, when they make comparisons these days, they kind of tend to forget. This was a really big thing for the PS5 as well. It didn't have 140p on launch. It didn't have VRR on launch. It had faulty VRR for the longest time. And it also had broken HDR at the very start for some games. So it is not really specific that you see, like, because I see it very amplified now on the Switch 2. When people are talking about it, like about these issues, they're talking like they are inexcusable issues. But the reality is, they are not really only limited to the Switch 2. This is something that a lot of consoles are having issues with. And the PS5 even has very limited support for a lot of things like this. Like even if you have VRR, G-Sync and FreeSync, it still has issues when you're trying to use the TV or the monitor, that they may not have it as supported. Even though your TV or monitor supports it, they tend to do things like that. Like they have supported things that only work on specific TVs or monitors, and you feel like an idiot because you can use all of those things normally on your Xbox or on your PC, but they don't work on PS5 for whatever reason. So that is something you also have to keep in mind, that and the reason that I'm referencing PS5 is not like I'm a hater or anything. I love my PS5, but it is something that you have to have in mind when you're making comparisons, especially early comparisons, because a lot of people tend to forget that these were issues, or they're still issues, especially with compatibility for stuff like that. And they try to, brush it aside as nothing ever happened. But for me, that is not that simple. So, moving forward, we are going to talk now about the handheld experience. Now, the handheld experience has been my favorite, but also has some issues. I really do enjoy using this device even without the grips. I got some grips now like a couple of days ago, and they have been like really fun to enjoy. It's from Savage Raven, Skull & Co. Very cheap. I got it for like $20 and it had the front cover as well. And it was pretty good. So for me, I have been enjoying a lot ever since I got it from the start, even without the grips. For my big hands, it has been an enjoyable experience, but based from what I have seen on my previous mentions and reviews of the device, a lot of people are still struggling. So a lot of people still feel that you need the extra, the extra comfort of something like a grip. So for that, I will definitely suggest this Savage Raven silicone grip. This is not an ad, I bought it with my own money. I just was amazed by how good it is and how cheap it was. So I'm like, if you're waiting for something else like a Satisfy, maybe give this a try. Maybe you don't really need to spend that much money on a grip. So, moving forward with that, handheld experience, we talked about the battery, we talked about the charging, but for me, the best thing with this device is that how cool everything looks. This device, because the handheld experience kind of bleeds into two paths. You have the normal handheld experience that you see here, but you also have the tabletop mode, which now the tabletop mode is actually useful. On the Switch 1, I didn't really find it useful because the device was too small. Like, the even though it had a good stand with the OLED, the device was just too small to look at as an adult. If you were a kid, probably this was amazing. But for me, being an adult, this was not really a great thing. But using it now, I used a lot in bed, so you don't have to get any hand cramps and stuff like this. You just remove the Joy-Cons, you put them on the thing, you fuse them all together magnetically. It does the clack. You wake up your wife, and then she's mad. But then it's all good because you're playing and you don't have any cramps in bed and stuff like this. Because when a lot of people when they're playing in bed, they have very different ways that they stay, and I can notice it myself. I see how differently my wife sits when she's playing a game and how I sit when I'm playing a game on bed. So a lot of people have a different issues around that. And I think the tabletop mode, because it is very good stand, that metallic stand is really, really good. I think it will have mostly everyone satisfied on whatever weird pose they're playing in. And like for me, it has been a really good experience when it comes to playing in the bed, when it comes to playing on the couch, anywhere really. The only thing that worries me is a little bit, it could be a little bit weird pulling this off on an airplane, because it feels like compared to the Switch Lite or the normal Switch OLED, it feels like maybe it's a little bit too big. Maybe it's a little bit too big, but maybe that's in my head only. Because the Steam Deck definitely is a fatter thing, it's a more loud thing. And that is something that I also wanted to talk about, is the fan noises. And compared to the Steam Deck, because I reference the Steam Deck because, again, no hating and stuff like this, but if you're using a Steam Deck, it's one of the things that happens. When you compare it to other handhelds like the ROG Ally, the ROG Ally sounds like a vacuum compared to the Steam Deck. And now, when you compare the Steam Deck compared to the Switch 2, the Steam Deck is the one that sounds like a vacuum. Although, you can kind of get around with the Steam Deck on the OLED, like you can just try to do some stuff to limit the power and stuff like this, to be a little bit more around on whatever you're trying to do, so you don't have that noise, like you're trying to limit the FPS and stuff like this. But again, it is louder, and that's why many times I used to prefer to play on the Portal on some heavy games, because those heavy games, at least it will be silent. I wouldn't have to worry about waking up my wife playing with the fan going Although, like, when you really think about it, compared to other things like a laptop or like like another, like an RGLI, it is Steam Deck is not loud. But when you compare it to the Switch 2, Switch 2 is silent. The only time that I have heard my Switch 2 ever make a sound is when I was playing Cyberpunk and I had undocked, and you get this feeling, because I think there is also a misconception that people have that there is the fan that there is inside the dog somehow cools down the Switch. It doesn't. The only thing that cools down the Switch is its own fans. And you can notice that because when you're playing a heavy game and you remove it from the dock, not only the device is a little bit hot, but you also get the situation that when you're pulling it off, you can hear the fans running loud for a bit. Even when you put it immediately, if you put it on sleep, it's still gonna try to cool itself down. So you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to put the device on something like a case. Keep that in mind. You have to stop hearing the fans before you put it in. It may be a little bit inconvenient, but I think it's gonna be very important for you to not melt anything, definitely. And again, it is very rare that you're gonna hear the fans. Now, you have to have some context. I'm hearing the fans and I'm saying I'm doing all these comparisons. Right now in Australia is winter, so it is not like the rest of the world that most people that watch this channel are in US. So if you are in the US, right now it's hot there. You may have different experience from me, and I'm only using this device during winter here. So I have no context of how it is when you're getting it on the summer, when you're getting it out, when you're getting it into direct sunlight. I got it into direct sunlight and I did some tests myself. And right now, the thing that you see on my screen is a matte screen from JSOX, which I have been using their matte screen, which is anti-glare screen, for the Steam Deck as well. And it has been really good, but I think the one on the Switch 2, I'm not sure it's because the Steam Deck is an OLED. On the Switch 2, it feels like I don't really get as many artifacts as I do on the Steam Deck. Pure white, when I have this thing on, looks a little bit rainbowish, but on the Switch 2, it doesn't really look at that. Maybe I don't really have seen like too much pure white on the Nintendo Switch 2, so I don't really notice it. But I don't really notice it at all. Like compared to the Steam Deck, I have seen it a lot. Maybe because I see it more when you go into when you change the mode and you go on the website, usually gonna be white and stuff like this. So I notice it more there. But when it comes to the games, like the Switch 2, it's mostly just you launch the game. You don't even have YouTube, which is crazy that we don't have YouTube yet on the Switch 2. But yeah, that is really how it works for me. The handheld experience has been really enjoyable. The battery life around it has been great, in my opinion. The charging, as long as you keep it handheld charging, is okay. And yeah, like it's pretty good around that. But now we have to dive in a little bit more on the handheld controls. So we have now from what I have seen from other people as well, when they're talking about the sticks. Now, the sticks seems to be just the top is different. The mechanism from the people that have done teardowns, they're saying it's the same. But for me, I cannot say that it's the same feeling when you're moving around the thing. It definitely feels way better. I use now, on top of them, the grips that I got from, again, Savage Raven, Skull & Co. Very good grips. They're not as good as D-brand grips, but they're good. So yeah, like I use them a lot. I enjoy it. And I think that the default is okay even, but I felt like I don't want to rub off the rubber too much. That's why I'm getting the grips, because I have seen other Switch Lites before that people couldn't really replace the grips on top of them, And they looked really ugly, man. When you start using it for a very long time and you rub off completely the padding, I felt like it was starting happening, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a grip because this doesn't really look great. And yeah, like I was enjoying it, and I still enjoy the controls. I haven't had any issues with anything around the controls or mouse controls. And if you have seen the other videos I made recently about the mouse controls, have been amazing on Apex. So very, very positive around all of things the controls, except you have to keep in mind some things now about the buttons. Now the buttons are most like similar to what you had on the 2DS XL, new 2DS XL. These buttons are clicky. I'm not sure if the original 2DS had stuff like this, but the new 2DS that I have, the limited edition, has clicky buttons like this. So these clicky buttons, when you're playing normally, it doesn't really affect you or anything. But when you're playing in bed, it can be a little bit anxious that you're loud. And I don't really like that. That is something I don't really enjoy. But it is something that is happening and I cannot control it, especially when I'm playing handheld. I'm just trying not to mash buttons a lot because these face buttons, they're kind of loud. And I kind of miss the more, non-clicky buttons from the Nintendo Switch 1. The same can be said about the D-pad. I wish that Hori, I don't know what Hori is doing, please man, just do something and get a proper D-pad because I really pulling my hair off that so many games that I want to play handheld, I have to play them tabletop because I have to get the controller. Like this is crazy that I cannot really play all these games that I want to have the D-pad, proper D-pad on. And I saw that a company, again, the same company, I keep saying them, but well, it is what it is. I'm not sponsored or anything. I bought this again with my own money and I'm waiting for it to come. It's from Savage Raven series again. They made kind of a thing that you're using the buttons and you make a huge D-pad. I have very low expectations that this is actually gonna work, but I ordered it and I'm gonna see it through and I'm gonna make a video about it so you guys know about it as well, because at least before you had the Hori thing that they made the Joy-Con with a D-pad and you could just buy that, but there is still nothing like that. Maybe it's too early, but there is still nothing like that, and I hate it because I want the D-pad. So many games I play, they're retro games, they're literally unplayable with these four buttons that they have there. And especially when I want to play Metroidvania games, I hate that the developers also many times they just make you use the stick. I hate it. I want to play with the D-pad. I don't want to learn a new thing. I had to do it with Metroid Dread. It became my favorite Metroid game because it was so cool game, but I hated it almost everything about it because I had to learn how to use the stick completely unlearn all of the things that I knew about the D-pad and all of this muscle memory I have since the Super Nintendo around these games. It just felt very awful that you didn't have any option to use a D-pad for those games. So yeah, like for me, this is really how it is. Like I don't want to sound too dramatic around it or anything, but yeah, it is something that I hope a company will come out with a proper D-pad and you're like, yes, perfect. And for me, this was mostly the review of the device and the experience. And now let's talk about the games because we already reached 24 minutes. Let's talk about the games. Now, my favorite game so far on the Nintendo Switch 2 has been Street Fighter 6. I just play it non-stop. Street Fighter 6, very cool. Other games that I enjoy a lot is Donkey Kong Bonanza. It is a game that I cannot really put down. It was the only game that I stopped playing Street Fighter for. and I have been heavily enjoying it. Everything about it, full of charm and all of that. It's just really, really cool experience. Another thing that I also have been enjoying is Warriors Abyss. This is the first video that you watched about this game. About this game that has been really, really cool. And it is, you have seen the video already if you have watched it. And it is a game that is mostly like a roguelike Dynasty Warriors game with a Diablo camera, which is pretty cool. Like, I really enjoy what they're trying to do there. And they keep doing collaborations, they keep making updates. It runs way better than the Switch 1 on the Switch 2. And I hope they're gonna eventually make a patch or make a Switch 2 version so I can finally play 60 FPS on the Switch 2. Because the game is totally not unplayable. You saw all of this. I almost beat the last boss on 30 FPS, so it's not like it's hard or anything to do. And I'm not really good at this game, so I'm pretty sure if you're pretty much better than me on this game, easily you can do this. So yeah, for me, that is pretty much how it is. And for that game, it is definitely very recommended. Another game that I have been enjoying a lot is also Dragon Quest XI. I'm going through the second playthrough now. I'm on Act 2, and it's just... I think it's now gonna start becoming my favorite Dragon Quest game. I played it before, I played it on PS4, but I think I was really tired, especially around the end of Arc 2. So now that I'm approaching more like chill around playing this game without like trying to rush to finish it, I'm enjoying it way more than before. Which I think the pacing is the only problem that game has, because everything else is pretty much like insane on that game. Now, another game that I have been playing a lot is Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is great on the Switch 2. Now on handheld you can actually see stuff. The screen was too small for Diablo 2. You had to play on zoomed in mode, which is really bad when you're trying to play Diablo 2. The zoomed in mode is not good at all when you're playing in game. So definitely having the ability to play handheld and be able to see all of it is great. I would personally I would hope and wish we will get a proper Switch 2 update for this game to be able to play on proper resolution, proper graphical settings for the Switch 2, and a mouse mode. The mouse mode would be crazy good on this. It would have been so good on this, and all of the ARPGs that are gonna come in the future, this is gonna be one of the most things that I'm gonna be excited about, to be able to have the mouse mode. Unlike other consoles, you do not have the ability to do so. So something like Path of Exile, Diablo 4 or whatever comes here, to be able to have the mouse mode and the controls with a joystick, gonna be fantastic, for real. And I'm looking forward to that. Another game that I have really been enjoying is WWE 2K25. If you haven't seen my review around it, I have made a review around it and it's pretty cool. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, also very good and one of the best looking games on this device. Just looks really cool, plays really well, especially on docked mode. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, this is the game that we're looking now on the screen, and I really, really love this. Like, I have not played this game beforehand. I had this for the longest time, but when I booted it and I saw, man, that frame rate, I was like, you know what? This is terrible. And that is pretty much, if you think about it, I just had this realization because this Marvel Ultimate Alliance is made by Koei Tecmo, as far as I know. If maybe this is the same studio that made Warriors Abyss, because they didn't make a new Marvel game, so they made this. It will be definitely interesting to see having a proper patch on this game, because right now I think it's only 30 FPS, I think. But it plays pretty well. Like, it still plays pretty well. You don't have to worry like too much about it, and it plays fine. And I have been enjoying it a lot because one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games was that similar game. I think it was X-Men Rise of Apocalypse 2, and it was amazing. Like, I had put so many hours on that game. It was just fantastic. So having a game like this and having it properly updated for the Switch 2 definitely will be amazing. But even without it, now it's definitely at least playable. And I'm thinking of buying the DLC because I didn't buy it before, because it just played terrible on the Nintendo Switch 1. Moving on to the next game is Pokemon Violet. That game was terrible on the Switch 1 as well, and I had to like kind of give myself to play on the Switch Lite, so the frame rate changes and all of that didn't look as bad because it was a smaller screen. But now that everything looks proper, and especially on docked mode as well, I have been enjoying the game a lot, and I have been trying to enjoy playing a little bit more competitive battling with that game. And the last game for today that I wanted to mention is Bayonetta 3. Finally plays really, really well on the Switch 2. I wish it gets a patch. I wish all the Bayonetta games and all, to be honest, all the games that have published by Nintendo or they're like Nintendo exclusives, I really hope they all get the upgrades because these games are really good, man. And it would be really a shame to not see these games upgraded for the Switch 2 because they're just epic games. And I would give anything to play Bayonetta Triple, like all of the games, the trilogy, to be able to play them on 4K, on the big TV and stuff like this, and have like proper support for that game because this franchise is one of my favorites. And there are so many games that I would hope and wish that they get the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom treatment because those games made with so many constraints on the Switch 1 and they could really fly. They could really, really fly when you put them on the Switch 2. Thank you for watching, and that was the video. Please let me know your opinions about what I said about my experience. How is your experience with this device? And also, what do you think about my favorite top 10 games so far on the Nintendo Switch 2? Thank you for watching, and again, I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Goodbye.